turn that monitoring volume down just a little bit here. Yeah. Let's hit the mic a whole bunch. Okay, let's see if I can remember how to do this, eh? To answer a few questions, yes, I am still alive. I've just been busy. That's it. YouTube has never been the biggest priority. I did not intend to take an almost year-long break from making YouTube videos, but here we are. None of that's important now, though, because what I have is an interesting project in front of me. This little thing right here. I think a lot of you guys have used these probably. I keep one on my keys. I think a lot of people do. The problem is there's a lot of things that you can use this USB for. And so the problem that I have is I never really know what to keep on it. There's a whole lot of things you might want to. I pulled up a few of the things that I frequently use and would keep on a USB. There's a program called DBAN, which is really helpful for just wiping out data off of hard drives. I like to keep Tails OS around. You know, I'm one of those people that is tech support a lot for my family and friends. So something like Conboot that will allow you to bypass Windows and Mac passwords fairly easily. It's not as great of a solution as it used to be, but it still does work. By the way, there's a free alternative that called Hiren's Boot. I'm not 100% sure if that's even worth checking out, but I noticed that whenever I pulled up the Conboot, it's maybe worth checking out. I think you can see the problem is that there's a lot of different things you could want to put on a USB drive to keep around with you. It's difficult to choose which one, and there's a few solutions that I've tried in the past. The most recent thing that I did was I just created several partitions on this exact flash drive, actually, so that I could do all three of these different things. I could have DBAN, I could have Tails OS, and I could have Conboot all running on a USB drive. The issue there is when you're trying to boot off of any media in any computer, whether it be Mac or Windows or Linux, it can be really, really difficult to tell from the BIOS screen sort of what partition you're selecting if they're not labeled really well, and you can't always count on the installers to label the partitions correctly. None of this is important because I think I've actually found a solution that's going to work really well. It's called Ventoy. The idea here basically is that I can take this one USB and I can create two separate partitions. There's still going to be two partitions because I want to still be able to use it to actually move some files around if I need to, but then I can also take this second partition, use Ventoy, and this will allow me to basically drop a whole bunch of disk image files onto this partition and boot into any one of those. That's the goal. We'll see if it works. I'm just gonna plug this bad boy in here really fast. And I probably should have killed UDisky before I did that because I don't think I actually want to mount it yet. Anyways, if I go ahead and just run, let's make our text a bit bigger here actually. And if I go ahead and run lsblk-f, whoops, hold up. We can hopefully get a pretty good look at the drives that are in this system. What I'm looking for is this one right here. SDF1 is formatted as VFAT right now. It looks like the last thing I actually put on it was the Arch installer. So what we want to do is go ahead and just create a couple of different partitions. There's a whole bunch of different ways you could do this. If you're on Mac OS, you could use disk utility, and that's really easy to do. You just sort of erase the drive, and then you can create one partition, select the size, do something like 8 gigs, select another partition, and set it all up that way. Windows, I forget the name of the exact app that you can use, but it's the same thing. There's a really easy graphical app. You go in there, select the drive, do one partition of whatever size, another partition of the other size. On Linux, what I'm going to use is a tool called cfdisk. It's very similar to fdisk. It's just a sort of TUI app that makes it slightly easier to create partitions and whatnot. So basically the way that it works is we need to select the actual drive, which in this case is SDF, which I think before I do anything, what I actually need to do is go ahead and just run umount on /dev sdf/sdf. That should unmount it. Yeah, I just got a little notification up there, this unmounted. Sweet. If we were to run lsblk-f again, you can see the drive is still there. It's just no longer mounted. That's what we want. So we're going to go ahead and run sudo cfdisk. And this should be installed on basically everything by default. It comes installed on Arch by default, so I assume it's on virtually every Linux OS that you could use. We're just going to run it on /dev sdf, and that'll select the entire drive. Now, when we get in here, you can see what we've got. One partition formatted as, it doesn't really matter. We're just going to delete it. Now what we can go ahead and do is create one new partition. You can see our drive here is 14.9 gigs. And if we really wanted to, we could do some math and sort of try to figure out exactly how much room we need on the drive for all of the ISOs that I want to use. These are the three things that I'm doing. You know, if I were to open up something like Thunar, maybe go over my downloads, I've actually got a few things that I did not want there. I could sort of take and look at these and I can see dbands, 15 megabytes, Con Boots, 1.4 megabytes, Tails OS is 1.2 gigs. So I really don't need more than like 2 gigs for one of the partitions. Just to be on the safe side, I'll do maybe a 5 gig partition. And this can be the partition that we use for all of our ISOs. And we'll create one more partition with the remaining space. And that can be just sort of spare space that we could use to throw files around. So then all you have to do with cfdisk is you can just hit write, type in yes or Y. Did not write partition table. Oh, maybe you do have to type in yes. So now what we need to do with these two partitions is just basically format them into whatever format we want. What I'm going to recommend is exFAT. And there's some limitations to that file system. The good thing about it is that it can be read by default on Mac OS and Windows, read and write, I mean to say. There are other formats like NTFS, for example. I have a drive that I keep formatted as NTFS, and the reason for that is that you can read and write on Windows, read and write on Mac OS, and if you install a package, you can read and write on Linux as well. I don't believe that's the case with exFAT. You should be able to basically plug an exFAT formatted drive into any system and immediately, like, you're good to transfer files, read and write, you're all set. So then what we want to do is sudo makefs.exFAT. Actually, you might have to install a package called, exFAT utils, just to format the drive as exFAT, but it should be read and write by default on everything. So anyway, sudo makefs.exFAT, and you just want to select the actual partition. So /dev sdf1, and then we're just going to do the same thing on sdf2, lsblk-f again, and we have two partitions, both formatted as exFAT. And we might need to mount them, so we can go ahead and just do a make-dir, call it 1 and 2. Now in our home directory, we just have a folder called 1 and 2, and what we could do is sudo mount /dev sdf1 to 1 and sdf2 to 2, lsblk-f one more time, and you can see now everything has a mount point. We're all good to go. Our first partition is going to be the one we want to install, Ventoy 2. So let's go ahead and try to run Ventoy. I believe it is actually in the AUR, which makes this process pretty easily. So we're going to do stu-pack, yay-s, and install Ventoy-bin. Obviously this installation process is going to vary depending on what Linux distribution you use. It's really easy to install apps like this on Arch, so use Arch. Anyways, let's go ahead and try to launch Ventoy. Let's see, maybe it's the Ventoy GUI is what we want. That's still not seeming to launch. Here, I don't know, maybe let's just open up a terminal real quick, and maybe let's do sudo Ventoy GUI. Who knows? Hey, look at that, that launched something. Looks like we can select the drive, and what we want is SDF, this 16 gig drive. Okay, I suppose we formatted. Sweet, yep, double check. Status, everything's looking good. Okay, it looks like, by the way this worked, we might not actually be able to have two separate partitions. I'm gonna go ahead and kill this, and let's run lsblk-f and see what it did to our drive. Yeah, okay. Sorry, the audio is gonna be kind of weird here, but I was just editing the video and also screwing around with Ventoy. This was not nearly as complicated as I needed it to be. There is no need to create two separate partitions on the drives. The way that Ventoy works, as I showed in the video, is you format your drive using the Ventoy app. You then can drag and drop on ISOs and then boot from any of those disk images when you need to. The cool thing is, though, that since the way that it functions is you're just dragging and dropping on ISOs, I have confirmed that you can literally just drag and drop on any files that you want as well. Ventoy, at least when I did it on Arch Linux, it formatted as exFAT. So again, You can read it on Windows, you can read it on Mac, you can read it on Linux. You're all good to go. You know what? I just need to mount this again. I'll reload BSBWM really fast. That should let UDisky run again. And so when I then plug in this old flash drive, we'll see what happens here. Okay, device added. Let me open up something like Thunar real quick. Ventoy drive. Anyways, from here, all we should need to do is literally, I'm just gonna grab all of these images and I'm gonna paste them into this folder where Ventoy automatically mount it. Anyways, go ahead and just pull that bad boy out and let's find a way to test this. You know what? Let me go grab a laptop real fast. I'll be right back. Okay, so I'm just gonna turn off and hopefully restart the MacBook here. I can never remember exactly how to do this. How to select boot device MacBook Pro. I think it's like Alt-R or something weird. Yeah, okay, it's Option or Alt. Oh dear Lord. So all we should have to do here is I'm gonna go ahead and plug in the old USB. And I think I just hold down Alt, start it up. I don't know at what point to let go of Alt. You gotta love macOS and all its weirdness. Okay, we're in. The screen is really dim for some reason. And here we have Ventoy. It is super dim and I cannot turn up the brightness for some reason. That is again just a weird macOS thing, but right here in Ventoy, what I'm looking at, I see Debian, Conboot, and I have Tails OS. So let me just try to go ahead and enter Tails OS here. Boot in normal mode, see what happens. Not a secure boot platform. Okay, I think that was my fault. I think I needed to boot using Grub. So let me just try and run this one more time. Man, if you can get it to work on a freaking MacBook, you can get it to work on anything because it's gonna always screw with you on every step of the process. And is it gonna load? Yeah, okay, we are in. Wait, yep, there we go. Yeah, all right. So I'm gonna go in and test this obviously and make sure Debian and everything else boots up the way that it's supposed to. But I think this is very promising. I think this is basically mission accomplished. This is what I wanted. So that's gonna be it for this video, everybody. Thank you everybody for coming and checking it out. I think this solves a really cool problem that a lot of people might have. I don't know, let me know. I'll see you in the next one.